By the time my son realized something was wrong, the house had already decided without him. Derek stood on the front walk, phone pressed to his ear, trying my name again, as if volume might unlock the door. The deadbolt did not move. The garage behind him was empty. When he slid his card through the reader at the corner store, the clerk shook her head and said, "It's not going through." Derek laughed once, thin and uncertain. "Try it again." It still did not work. There was no note on the counter, no explanation on the fridge, no car in the drive. I was gone. He called my sister. He called Vanessa. He called me. When none of it made sense, he decided it must be a mistake, something technical, something I would fix as soon as I realized. He did not understand yet that nothing had broken. Everything had been finished. The night before, I had picked up his phone to return it. Derek had left it on the side table, dark, buzzing faintly. I was not snooping. I am Margaret Sterling. I am 71 years old. I raised my son alone. I do not go through other people's things. The screen woke before I could set it down. "Don't worry, love," the message read. "I'll put the old woman in a nursing home." I did not gasp. I did not drop the phone. I read it again, slower. Another message followed, neat and practical, mentioning paperwork and timing as if my life were a meeting that had already been scheduled. "Mom," Derek called from the kitchen. His voice was normal, carefree, the sound of someone who believed the ground beneath him was solid. "I'm here," I said, and surprised myself by how steady I sounded. I placed the phone exactly where it had been and walked past him without meeting his eyes. I did not sleep much. I did not cry. By morning, Derek would wake up to an empty house and a silence he did not recognize. I closed my bedroom door and sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded, listening to the house settle. The decision did not arrive with anger. It arrived with clarity, and it stayed. The message sat on the screen like it belonged there. Not rushed, not angry, calm, affectionate, rehearsed. "Don't worry, love," it read. "I'll put the old woman in a nursing home." I read it once, then again. I waited for my chest to tighten, for my hands to shake. Neither happened. What I felt was colder than fear, the kind of stillness that comes when something clicks into place and cannot be undone. Another message slid up beneath it, as polite as a checklist. It mentioned paperwork, timing, a window before winter. Nothing about asking me. Nothing about talking, just steps. From the kitchen, Derek laughed at something Vanessa said. A short laugh, easy and unguarded. The sound of someone who believed the day was unfolding exactly as it should. "Mom," he called. "Did you find my phone?" "Yes," I said. My voice surprised me. It didn't crack. "You left it on the table." I carried the phone back and placed it exactly where it had been, screen dark now, obedient. Derek glanced at it and smiled, already reaching for his coffee. "Thanks," he said. "You didn't have to." "I know," I said. Vanessa stepped closer, lowering her voice in the way people do when they think they are being considerate. "You look tired. Did you sleep all right?" "I slept," I said. It was true. She nodded, satisfied, as if that answered something for her. Derek was already talking about his plans for the day, about a call he needed to make, about how things were going to settle soon. His words passed over me without landing. I watched them move through my kitchen, touching drawers, opening cabinets, speaking with the confidence of people who believed they had time. No one noticed that I had gone quiet. No one asked what I had read. The certainty of the message pressed harder than any raised voice could have. Anger would have been easier to forgive. This was different. This was agreement already reached. I walked down the hall and closed my bedroom door. I sat on the bed with my hands in my lap and listened to them talk about my life as if it were a schedule pinned somewhere I could not see. By then, the decision had already taken shape. It did not feel dramatic. It felt necessary. I married young and buried my husband before I learned how to ask for help. Derek was 6 when I stood in the hallway holding his small coat, telling him we would be all right. I meant it. I had to. There was no one else to mean it for us. "I can take more hours," I told my principal the following week. "I'm steady," he said, watching me the way people do when they measure reliability. I became the woman who stayed late, who kept records clean, who listened when children cried and adults faltered. Education does that to you. It teaches you to stand without applause. Mom, you don't have to work so hard, Derek said once, already taller than me, trying to sound grown. I'm not working hard, I told him. I'm working forward. Decades passed that way, paychecks earned, bills paid, choices made without asking permission. I bought the house on a quiet street in Asheville because it felt solid. I paid it off myself, one payment at a time, until the letter arrived saying the balance was zero. I read it twice before I laughed out loud. You did it, Ruth Patterson said when I told her. All on your own. I know, I said. That's why it matters. Ownership was never about walls or keys. It was about knowing no one could move me without my consent. It was about sleeping without rehearsing explanations. It was about saying yes because I wanted to and no because I meant it. Even after Derek grew up and brought his own family into the world, I stayed clear. I handled my accounts. I signed my own papers. When people offered help that sounded like takeover, I declined politely. Mom, are you sure you don't want us to manage some of this? Derek asked once, years ago. I'm sure, I said. If that changes, I'll tell you. Nothing had changed. My mind was clear. My name was still on every document that mattered. The life I lived was not something that happened to me. It was something I had built deliberately, and I knew every beam that held it up. It'll just be for a short while, Derek said, standing in my doorway with that careful tone he used when he wanted agreement without debate. Until things settle. They always do, Vanessa added quickly. We just need a little breathing room. All right, I said. I meant it the way a mother does, trusting the word temporary to behave. The first change arrived with boxes. We'll take the back bedroom, Derek said, already carrying a lamp down the hall. It's closer for Tyler. That makes sense, Vanessa said, smiling at me as if we were sharing a secret. Tyler hovered behind them, quiet. Mom says I need more space to study, he said, not meeting my eyes. You can use the desk in the den, Vanessa told him, already moving my papers aside. Grandma won't mind. I did mind. I just didn't say it. By the second week, the evenings had a rhythm I didn't choose. We eat around 7 now, Derek said one night, glancing at his watch. It's better for Tyler. I already ate, I said. That's fine, Vanessa replied. We'll heat something for you later. Later became often. Often became expected. One morning, I reached for the kettle and Vanessa stopped me with a light touch on my wrist. Can you wait a second? I'm almost done here. In my kitchen, I said, smiling because she was smiling. Of course, she said. I just don't want you in the way. The words landed softly. That was the trick. Friends called and asked to speak to me. Derek answered. She's resting, he'd say. I'll tell her. My name began to disappear in conversation. Your mom thinks, Vanessa would say. Your mom prefers. One afternoon I said, I'm going to the store. Derek looked up. Do you need the car? No, I said. Good, he replied. Tyler has practice. Nothing was taken outright. Everything was adjusted. Each change came with a reason, a smile, a promise of harmony. By the time I noticed how much had shifted, the house felt like it was already running on decisions made without me. Vanessa brought it up while rinsing a mug, her voice careful, almost gentle. I've been thinking about safety, she said, as if the word itself were a favor. Just options, nothing urgent. Derek didn't look at me when he spoke. It's responsible to plan ahead, Mom. You always taught me that. Plan what? I asked. Support, Vanessa said quickly. Places with nurses on site, people who can help if something happens. She smiled the way people do when they believe kindness is convincing on its own. It's not about now. It's about peace of mind. Whose? I said. Derek sighed, already tired of the question. Everyone's. You live alone. You forget things sometimes. I forget where I put my glasses, I said. Not who I am. We're just talking, he replied. You don't have to get defensive. The words settled between us like a decision already made. A few nights later, Tyler spoke up at dinner, eyes fixed on his plate. Mom says it's stressful for people your age to manage bills. Vanessa laughed softly. He worries about you. Did you tell him that? I asked. She shrugged. Kids pick things up. They picked up more than that. Tyler asked if I ever felt confused. He asked if I got lonely at night. He asked if I'd be happier where someone checked on me. None of the questions sounded like his. They sounded practiced. Derek leaned back in his chair. No one's saying you can't decide. We're just making it easier. Easier for whom? I said. For us, he said, then corrected himself. For you. The language stayed smooth. Safety, options, responsibility. Not once did anyone ask what I wanted. Not once did they wait for an answer before moving on. The next morning, Vanessa left papers on the counter, not facing me, facing the light. Intake information, checklists, a line for medical authorization, blank but expectant. I thought I'd get organized, she said when she noticed me looking. It helps to be prepared. Prepared for what? She didn't say. She didn't have to. The conversation had already moved ahead of me, rehearsed in softer voices, tested on a child who trusted them. I folded the papers once and set them aside. I said nothing. By then, I understood the language well enough to know it wasn't meant to invite me in. I woke to voices drifting down the hall, low and careful, the way people speak when they believe the walls are on their side. Derek sounded impatient. Vanessa sounded calm. We can't keep waiting, he said. Winter's coming. That's the window. I know, she replied. I'm easing her into it. Easing doesn't matter if the paperwork isn't ready, Derek said. Once it's signed, the rest is logistics. Logistics, not care, not conversation, not consent. I stayed still until their voices dropped into silence. In the morning, I took out the trash. On top of the bag sat a brochure folded too neatly to be an accident, a smiling couple on the front. Inside, a checklist, intake steps, a timeline. I read my name printed in clean black letters and felt the air thin around me. I carried it back inside and set it on the counter. Vanessa walked in and stopped short. Where did you find that? In the trash, I said. She glanced at Derek, then back at me. It's just information. You're reading too much into it. It has dates, I said. And forms. Derek stepped forward, voice already firm. Mom, we're trying to help. Planning early is responsible. Responsible for whom? I said. For everyone, he replied. This way, there's no rush later. Later, I learned, meant before winter. That afternoon, I opened a folder I kept under my bed. It felt lighter than it should have. The copy of my will was gone. Not the original, just the reference copy. The insurance packet was thinner. At dinner, Derek spoke like the matter was settled. We should aim to have everything sorted before the end of the year, he said. I nodded once. He mistook it for agreement. The next day, Vanessa slid a single page toward me. This is just medical authorization, she said softly. For emergencies. The line for my signature waited at the bottom, clean and patient. I set the pen down. I'll look at it later. Of course, she said, already collecting the paper. There's time. There wasn't. Not really. By then, I understood something they hadn't bothered to hide anymore. This wasn't a plan forming. It was already moving step by step, and all it needed was my name. I did not confront Derek or Vanessa. I did not ask for explanations or offer chances to soften what they were already doing. Silence gave me something they didn't expect. Time. I called Ruth Patterson first. She answered on the second ring. Something's wrong, she said before I could speak. I need you to listen, I told her. Not fix anything. Just listen. I told her about the message, the forms, the timeline whispered like a deadline. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. You're not imagining this, she said. I know. Then you need someone who can put this on record. The second call took longer to place. I sat at my desk, phone steady in my hand, and waited. James Brennan, the voice said, calm and unhurried. My name is Margaret Sterling, I said. I think my family is trying to take control of my life. He did not interrupt. He asked for details, dates, words used, who had access to what. When I mentioned the intake forms and the missing copies, he stopped me gently. What you're describing is elder financial exploitation, he said. The word landed heavier than any accusation. I'm not accusing them, I said. You don't need to, he replied. You're describing behavior. The law recognizes patterns like this. He explained the steps without raising his voice. Revoke access to any accounts that were mine. Secure my assets so nothing could be moved without my consent. Prepare a lawful removal if they were living in my home under false assumptions. I don't want to fight, I said. Then don't, he replied. Silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. When the call ended, the house was loud with voices that did not include me. Derek laughed. Vanessa talked about schedules. Tyler moved through the hall. None of them noticed that I had stopped reacting. They mistook my quiet for agreement. They mistook my stillness for fear. While they spoke freely, I began preparing, carefully and lawfully, to take back what had always been mine. I began with the documents. The deed came first, then the car title, then the files I kept because I never trusted memory to protect what paper could. I laid everything out and checked it twice. My name stood alone where it should have. That steadied me. At the bank, the teller recognized me. Good morning, Miss Sterling. Good morning, I said. I'd like to open new accounts today. All of them. All of mine, I said. She didn't ask why. She slid the forms across the desk and explained the steps. By the end of the afternoon, access had been changed. Cards connected to my accounts were canceled. New passwords were set, slow and deliberate, one at a time. Email, utilities, anything that had ever been shared because trust felt easier than boundaries. My phone buzzed before I reached the car. Mom, Derek said, bright and casual. Did you move money around? My card isn't working. I reorganized, I said. It was overdue. There was a pause. You didn't tell me. I didn't need to. That evening, I called the locksmith James had recommended. Tomorrow morning, I said. First thing. Any special instructions? No spare keys. None, I said. Vanessa hovered in the doorway while I packed a small bag. You're quiet, she said, searching my face. I'm tired, I said. We're just trying to help, she replied. I know, I said, and meant something different than she heard. The legal notice was brief and precise. 30 days to vacate, clear dates, a number for my attorney, no explanation in my handwriting. At dinner, Derek talked about plans. Vanessa nodded along. Tyler asked about the weekend. I passed the bread. I washed my plate. No one noticed what I carried out to the car. By nightfall, the house sounded the way it always had when I was alone. I set my phone on the table and let it stay there. When I turned out the light, the pieces were already in motion, quiet and irreversible, moving toward a warning they would not recognize. Derek learned first. He told me later, voice tight and clipped, as if facts might steady him. He turned the key and felt it stop. He tried again, harder. The lock did not yield. He stepped back and stared at the door like it had betrayed him. Vanessa came up behind him. Did you use the wrong key? It's the right one, he said. It's always the right one. The garage was empty. No car, no note. The space looked wider without explanation. Derek pulled out his phone and called my name once. Twice. He left a message that sounded confident until it didn't. At the corner store, he slid his card across the counter. The clerk shook her head. It's not going through. That's impossible, he said. Try it again. She did. The answer didn't change. By the time Vanessa reached him, his voice had sharpened. Something's wrong, he said. She moved money. She wouldn't, Vanessa replied, already dialing. She'd tell us. She didn't. They searched the house from the outside in, peering through windows, checking the back door, the side gate, the shed. Derek tried the spare key, then the other spare. Nothing opened. Vanessa spotted the envelope taped inside the front window. Legal language. Clear dates. 30 days to vacate. A number for my attorney. No apology. No signature beyond my printed name. This is a mistake, Derek said, reading it again. She can't do this. Vanessa swallowed. It says she already did.
Calls came fast after that.
My phone vibrated on the seat beside me. I let it ring. A message from Derek, louder now. A message from Vanessa, careful and pleading. Another from Derek, anger bleeding through control. This isn't funny, he said in the next one. The accounts are showing 0. 0.
Nothing had been taken from them.
No drawer was emptied. No wall was stripped bare. What vanished was permission, the kind they had been using without asking. By the time they understood that access could be turned off without warning, the house behind them felt different. Not stolen, not attacked, simply closed. The consequences arrived without drama. No sirens, no shouting, just letters, calls, and quiet decisions made by people who read paperwork for a living. James Brennan called first. The court issued an order this morning, he said. Your son is barred from managing or accessing elder finances. For how long? Indefinitely, he replied. Not just yours, anyone's. Vanessa learned a week later. Her supervisor asked her to step into an office and close the door. She called me that afternoon, voice tight and controlled. They flagged my name, she said. They're reviewing everything. I told the truth, I said. That's all I did.
There was nothing she could argue with in that.
The final meeting was brief. Derek arrived first, jaw set, eyes tired. Vanessa followed, hands folded too carefully. James sat at the end of the table, silent. I'm going to read something, I said. Derek scoffed, already leaning back. This is unnecessary. I read the message aloud, word for word. I did not raise my voice. Vanessa inhaled sharply. You don't understand the context. The context was planning my removal, I said. Derek leaned forward. We were helping. Helping requires consent, James said quietly. No one spoke after that. After, I stood, gathered my bag, and nodded once to my grandson, who waited near the door. I'm sorry, he said. I know, I told him. I live on my own now. I choose my mornings. I sign my name where it belongs. The house I took back did more than shelter me. It ended their ability to decide my life without me. Here is what I learned and what I will not soften. Love that asks for silence is not love. Help that removes choice is control. Boundaries are not punishment. They are protection, and sometimes they are the only way to stay whole.